This is me, July 29th, 2008. It is 12:33 Mountain Time. Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented. Hope everything works out and we're all happy and live happily ever after as much as that's possible.
Did you kill your wife?
No.
Their family seemed picture perfect. 2 beautiful children, a home in a peaceful Salt Lake City suburb. But when Susan Powell suddenly vanished in December 2009, all eyes turned to her husband, Josh, who eventually became the only person of interest according to police.
There was a letter inside a safety deposit box at a local bank in West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell had placed it there in June 2008. On the outside cover, she had written by hand, "For family, friends of Susan, all except Josh Powell, husband. I don't trust him." Inside, she wrote, "If I die, it may not be an accident, even if it looks like one. Take care of my boys." She was 26 years old when she sealed it away. 18 months later, Susan Powell was gone. Her boys were 4 and 2. Her purse, her phone, her keys, and her wallet were all left behind. And the one person who could account for her final hours was the same person she had deliberately kept out of that box. The most unsettling part of what investigators eventually uncovered isn't just what happened to Susan, it's how long she had seen it coming, and how completely the people and systems around her failed to act on what she'd already put in writing. Susan Marie Cox was born in New Mexico in 1981 and grew up in a tight-knit, deeply religious family that eventually settled in the Pacific Northwest. People who knew her described someone warm, grounded, and devoted, close to her parents Chuck and Judy, the kind of older sister younger siblings looked up to. She graduated from Rogers High School in Washington State and was 18 years old when she met a man named Joshua Powell. Josh was 7 years older. He moved fast. 6 months after they first met, they were married at a Mormon temple. Susan was still a teenager. In the early years, her own journals reflected someone in love. She wrote in 2002 that she felt incredibly lucky to have Josh. She was building something, a home, a family, a future. 2 boys eventually came, Charlie in 2005, Braden in 2007. From the outside, the Powell family looked complete. But Susan's journals didn't stay warm for long. The cracks weren't visible to neighbors or coworkers. They were hidden inside pages no one would read until years after she was gone. And what those pages revealed was a slow, grinding pattern of control that had taken root inside her marriage long before December 2009. Josh controlled the finances in ways Susan found suffocating. He managed every account, monitored every dollar, and built a structure where Susan had very little financial independence, despite being, at various points, the primary income earner keeping the household running. She wrote about it plainly. In a Facebook message to a brother-in-law in September 2008, she said, "Money is control, and I'm his asset to be controlled and abused, and I'm not allowing that any longer." She had also started documenting fear. By 2007, her journal entries reflected someone carefully calculating what she could and couldn't say around her own husband. She worried about triggering his anger. She wrote about whether she needed to take the children and run. She told her sister in the fall of 2007 that Josh had said he would kill her before ever agreeing to a divorce. In her journal in 2008, she wrote, "Will he do something irrational? Do I need to pack up kids and run? Will he hurt me and/or take the kids? Hurt them?" Those aren't the words of someone venting after a bad argument. That's someone calculating whether she was physically safe in her own home. And while she was writing that, she was quietly building a way out. Susan opened a separate bank account Josh didn't know about. She got her own phone plan. She registered a safety deposit box in her name only and began filling it with the documents she would need to start over. Financial records, insurance papers, and the handwritten will she dated June 28, 2008, the morning after their worst argument on record. She also recorded herself on video cataloging the family's assets, saying on camera that she was covering her bases in case something happened to her.
Covering all my bases, making sure that if something happens to me or my family or all of us, that our assets are documented. hope everything works out and we're all happy and live happily ever after as much as that's possible. Charlie, say hi. Can you see that? 11:44 a.m. And I am documenting all our assets just in case of any emergencies, fire, flood, damage, disputes. And we have 2 Samsung monitors. And this is Josh's computer, and there's some type of backup device and speakers. And here's the kind of pimping out stuff he's done to his computer. He built it himself. I think there's like 5 hard drives, something about doing raids. There's those for all the computer geeks. And Josh locked this, but this is all of his files. See, locked. Those are his files. And he bought expensive stuff, like these are, I think this was like a couple of $1,000 of, like, it says graphic design templates by Stock Layouts or something like that. Alright, here's our unfinished basement. We bought 3,000 pounds of wheat, and these are buckets of wheat. See? And this one, whoops. Chemical free hard white wheat with mint green gum and red wheat with mint gum. So there's a whole bunch of boxes of, or buckets of it. Here is a rigid saw. I don't know the differences. I think this is a chop saw. Oh, there we go. It says miter saw utility vehicle MSUV. Oh, that's the holding thing of it.
By the end of 2009, she had given herself a private deadline. If Josh refused to re-engage with their church and enter marriage counseling before their April 2010 wedding anniversary, she was filing for divorce. She had told this to close friends. It wasn't a threat made in the heat of a fight. It was a decision. She built all of that while still living inside the marriage. She never reached April 2010. December 6, 2009 was a Sunday. Susan and the boys attended their LDS Ward church service that morning and walked home with her close friend Kiersey Hellewell. That afternoon, a neighbor named Giovanna Owings stopped by the Powell home. Josh had made pancakes and eggs for dinner. Susan mentioned she was tired. She lay down for a nap around 5 p.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of Susan Powell by anyone outside her immediate household. The next morning, Susan didn't arrive at her job at Wells Fargo Financial. Charlie and Braden never showed up at daycare. The childcare provider called both Susan and Josh's phones. No answer. She reached Josh's mother and sister, who called police. Officers entered the Powell home around 10 a.m. on December 7th. Josh and the boys weren't there. What they found: Susan's purse in the master bedroom. Her wallet, her keys, her credit cards, her cell phone. Everything left behind. No signs of forced entry. No signs of a physical struggle. But there were 2 fans sitting in the living room, both blowing on a wet area of carpet near the sofa. An area that appeared to have been recently and deliberately cleaned. On the tile floor just next to that wet spot, investigators found a stain. Forensic testing later confirmed it was Susan's blood. That evening, Josh Powell returned home with Charlie and Braden. He told investigators he had taken the boys camping, impulsively, just after midnight, in sub-freezing temperatures, during a winter storm, driving 85 miles into the Utah desert with a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old who had daycare the next morning. He said Susan was asleep when he left. He said he came home and found her gone. He said he had no idea where she was. Authorities searched the area Josh described, Simpson Springs Recreation Area, roughly 2 hours from their home. They found no evidence of a campsite. Everything pointed in one direction. Yet prosecutors never filed a charge. And that is where this case became something that still troubles people who have studied it closely. Think about what the first hours inside that house actually told investigators. The fans, the wet carpet, the cleaned sofa, Susan's blood on the tile, her phone left in the house, the same phone Josh later couldn't explain why he had in his own car. Not a single belonging that a woman leaving voluntarily would have walked away without. Then consider what Josh did in the days that followed. After police returned his van, Josh went immediately to a rental car company. Over the next 2 days, he put more than 800 miles on that vehicle. Cell records placed him near Tremonton, in northern Utah. He offered no explanation for where he had been. Investigators also discovered that when he turned over his personal cell phone to police, he had already removed the SIM card before handing it over, without telling them. 1 week after Susan was reported missing, Josh called the daycare center. He told the provider the boys wouldn't be coming back, and that she would probably never see them again. The next day, he canceled every one of Susan's scheduled chiropractic appointments. 2 days after that, he walked into a bank with a power of attorney form and drained her IRA account entirely. He was dismantling the infrastructure of her life while investigators were still asking where she was. Investigators also found that Susan carried multiple life insurance policies. The total value across all of them came to $1.5 million. Investigators also gathered statements from Josh's co-workers. One of them told police that Josh had previously spoken at work about how to murder someone and dispose of a body in an abandoned mine shaft in the western Utah desert. That detail prompted a 2-day search of mine shafts near Ely, Nevada, in August 2011. Investigators found nothing they could use, but the boys had already said something. Charlie Powell, 4 years old at the time of his mother's disappearance, told detectives that his mom had gone camping with them, but didn't come home, and he didn't know why. A few weeks later, he told a teacher at his church, "My mom is dead." He said it without visible emotion. As Charlie grew older, he began talking more openly with his maternal grandparents. According to the attorney representing the Cox family, Charlie told his grandparents that they had gone camping and that Mommy was in the trunk. He said his mom and dad had gotten out of the car and then his mom was gone. Charlie also drew a picture at school, a van with his father driving, himself and Braden in the back seats, and his mother depicted in the trunk. When a teacher asked about the drawing, he repeated the same account without hesitation. Investigators had a child's account of that night. They had blood evidence. They had financial behavior that defied any innocent reading. They had Susan's own documented fear going back years, and they still couldn't bring a charge. While the investigation in Utah continued without resolution, Josh moved with Charlie and Braden to his father Susan Powell's home in Puyallup, Washington. That move introduced something no one in the public had anticipated. When investigators searched Susan Powell's home looking for evidence connected to Susan's disappearance, they found journals, more than 2,300 pages of them across 17 spiral notebooks. Prosecutors described them as sexually graphic and stated that the vast majority of the content focused on Susan. Stephen had written about secretly filming her from under bathroom doors, watching her from hallways, a fixation that the journals made clear had spanned years. One entry prosecutors cited read, "I am a voyeur, and Susan is an exhibitionist." No one who actually knew Susan recognized that characterization. What investigators found during that same search that led to criminal charges were photographs taken through a bathroom window of 2 young neighbor girls, ages 8 and 10, secretly recorded while they were bathing. That discovery ended the boys' time in the Powell household immediately. Charlie and Braden were removed and placed with Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox. Susan Powell was arrested and ultimately convicted of 14 counts of voyeurism and later child pornography charges. Josh moved to a rental home in Graham, Washington. He had lost custody of his sons. The legal battle with the Cox family was intensifying. The investigation into Susan's disappearance had never formally closed.
Did you kill your wife?
No.
Did you have anything to do with the disappearance of your wife?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Josh told police he took his boys on a winter camping trip the night his wife disappeared, leaving their home after midnight to drive to a campsite 2 hours away in the bitter cold. When he returned, he says, his wife was gone. Now, after 20 months of harsh accusations and bitter family embroilments, he tells ABC News his story.
What is the truth?
People who know me know that I'm a good dad. I work hard. I put my sons first. I was a good husband. I took care of my family.
And I see you're still wearing your wedding band.
Yeah.
You still love her?
Yeah. I guess you could say that I still love her.
On February 1, 2012, a court ordered Josh to complete a psychosexual evaluation, including a polygraph, before any custody arrangement could be revisited. 4 days later, he lost an appeal to regain the boys. He had one supervised visit remaining on the calendar. Sunday, February 5, 2012. Charlie and Braden loved their father. Despite the upheaval of the preceding 2 years, they still lit up when they went to see him. The social worker assigned to the visits, Elizabeth Griffin Hall, had taken the boys there for 3 months. She later said one of the boys had told her that what he wanted most was to go home and live with his daddy. That Sunday, she drove the boys to Josh's rental home in Graham. They ran ahead toward the front door. Josh opened it, took them inside, and caught Griffin Hall's eye for a moment. She later described his expression, shoulders slumped, a look she couldn't quite name. He said nothing to her. He closed the door. From outside, Griffin Hall heard Josh say to Charlie, "I've got a big surprise for you." Then she heard Braden cry. She knocked, banged on the door. No response. She smelled gasoline. She called 911. 8 minutes after her initial contact with authorities, deputies were dispatched. It was already too late.
An explosion of fire that suddenly ended 3 lives at the center of an unusually volatile and public family drama.
A terribly sad story out of Washington State. Josh Powell, who lost custody of his 2 boys after being suspected of killing his missing wife Susan back in 2009, killed himself and the children Sunday by setting the house on fire with a gas explosion.
Josh Powell had attacked both boys with a hatchet and set fire to the house. The Pierce County medical examiner determined that all 3 died of smoke inhalation. Both boys had what the examiner described as chop injuries, Braden to his head and neck, Charlie to his neck.
Parents said they feared that father might be capable of violence, and tonight they have their terrible confirmation. Here's ABC's Neil Karlinski.
It was a twisted murder-suicide. 2 young boys killed at the hands of their father, Josh Powell, in a terrifying end to a long and sordid nightmare.
I was afraid that if he had the chance, the only way he could win this game that he was playing was to kill them.
But what happened inside the house before the flames broke out is far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. Police say Josh Powell tried to kill his 7-year-old son Charles and 5-year-old Braden with a hatchet before the fire could take their lives.
I don't know if his intent was to try and put him out before the fire got him, but he didn't do a very good job of it.
Josh Powell was no stranger to police scrutiny. He was the prime suspect in the disappearance of his wife, Susan Powell, missing over 2 years now. Just before 12:30 Sunday afternoon, the 2 boys were escorted to Josh Powell's home by a caseworker for a court-ordered visitation with their father. Police say he locked the caseworker out and ignited 2 5-gallon cans of gasoline, sparking an explosive fireball that leveled the house, killing both boys and Powell. And they say there were signs he had been carefully planning his final act.
In the days prior, Josh had donated the boys' toys to Goodwill. Minutes before the explosion, he sent emails to his pastor and family members with instructions for handling his financial affairs. He also sent a short message to his custody attorney. "I'm sorry. Goodbye." Pierce County Sheriff Paul Pastor said publicly in the aftermath, "What happened here was an act of evil. Do not call it a tragedy, because that sanitizes it." Investigators who later reviewed Josh's final actions concluded they were significant to their understanding of what had happened to Susan in December 2009. A man who had never been charged, who had refused a scheduled 3rd police interview, who had maintained his innocence for over 2 years. That man chose to end his life rather than submit to a psychological evaluation with a polygraph attached to it. The implication wasn't subtle. West Valley City Police formally closed their investigation into Susan's disappearance in 2013. Their official conclusion was that Josh Powell had killed Susan, and that his brother Michael Powell had been heavily involved in concealing her body. Both men died by suicide roughly a year apart, without ever speaking publicly about what they knew. Stephen Powell died in 2018 without giving investigators the statement they had spent years trying to get from him. In 2020, a jury found Washington State's Department of Social and Health Services partially responsible for the deaths of Charlie and Braden, awarding $98 million to the boys' estates. A verdict later reinstated on appeal. A separate independent review concluded that sealed evidence held by West Valley City Police, which was never shared with Washington state child welfare officials, would have raised specific safety concerns for the children that were never acted on. Susan Powell documented her situation better than most people in her position ever managed to. She wrote down her fears while still living inside them. She assembled a private record of her marriage while the person she was documenting controlled her finances. She put a warning in a safety deposit box and made sure the one person who might destroy it had no access to it. She set a deadline for herself. April 2010. If things didn't change by their anniversary, she was leaving. She disappeared 4 months before that deadline arrived. Susan Cox Powell has been missing for over 15 years. No confirmed location, no grave. Searches over the years, mine shafts in Nevada, areas near Topaz Mountain in Utah, produced nothing conclusive. The case remains technically open. What she left behind are journals, emails, a video of herself calmly cataloging the family's assets so that if something happened, there would be a record. A handwritten letter in a safety deposit box addressed to everyone except her husband. And 2 little boys she spent years quietly trying to protect. The one question this investigation never answered, the one her family has carried for over 15 years, is the same one it started with. Where is Susan Powell?